Today we are going to discuss organizational development. This is the first lecture on the topic of organizational development. So I just want to tell you that organizational development is one of the parts or branches of human resource management. So when we discuss training and development, human resource management, organizational development, or maybe organizational behavior, all these subjects are overlapping subjects. So there is similarity between different subjects that I have just mentioned. But when we discuss organizational development, we understand that it is a process. The very first thing that you want to know that organizational development is a very long-term process. In many cases, it takes a lot of time when we are trying to develop or improve the organization. So first thing that we understand, it's a process, it's not an event. You cannot develop the organization overnight. So it's going to take time. And in organizational development, we are trying to use behavioral science knowledge. So when we discuss behavioral science knowledge, as I discussed that, of course, organizational behavior and organizational development have some overlapping. So when we discuss behavioral science knowledge, we are looking at sociology, we are looking at anthropology, and of course, we are looking at psychology. So we have so far discussed that yes, organizational development is a process and it uses a behavioral science knowledge, a broad range of behavioral science knowledge, along with the practice to help build the capacity of the organization to change and to achieve greater effectiveness. So as you're aware that all the organizations in the market, they're trying to compete with each other and they're trying to gain something called competitive advantage. So we see organizations in the market, they are competing for competitive advantage, yeah, and they want to have an edge over each other, yeah. So when the competitive advantage they're trying to achieve, they want to build their organization. They maybe want to reset things, they want to reinvent, or they just want to renovate. They just want to reform the organization to move forward and to take this comparative or competitive advantage over their competitors. So when we understand the greater effectiveness, when we discuss the point that they are trying to achieve greater effectiveness, what does that mean? What kind of effectiveness they are wanting to achieve? So when we discuss the greater effectiveness, the very first thing that comes in mind may be financial performance. Thereafter, maybe better financial achievement, yeah. If not its financial achievement, it could be about customer satisfaction. That's another area where organizations can build themselves, or maybe they can bring improvement to increase or enhance their performance and to satisfy the different stakeholders. Or maybe it's about employee engagement. So it could be potentially about employee engagement, okay, where they are trying to build the workforce or enhance the skills of the existing employees so that they can deal with the challenges of the market. So far we have understood that yes, it's a very long-term process in many cases, and it uses a broad range of behavioral science knowledge, and it tries to build the capacity of the organization. So we are looking at the system's capacity. Organization will itself know that they have to now move, they have to change. So for example, if you take the scenario of Nokia, it was a market leader at one point, but it did not change to the software technology or smart technology. Resultantly, we see Nokia was driven out of the business. Similarly, if we talk about BlackBerry, such are the companies which were driven out of the market because they said no to the change, or they failed to develop on time to cater to the needs of the people. So when we are looking at the external environment, we want to understand that organizations are dealing with different problems. So let me just give you a insight into what I'm talking about here. So we have understood so far that there have been companies like Kodak, Nokia, and maybe, as I mentioned, apart from Nokia, BlackBerry, these organizations could not compete in the market because they failed to develop or change on time. But when we discuss the modern organizations, I just want to give you an example. When Google and uh, ChatGPT were competing with each other, Google was making a presentation. A presentation was done by Google to roll out their technology called Gemini, which was initially called Bard, and it was protected by Lambda. So the lady was making the presentation, and she tried to Google uh, which agency searched the exoplanet in the universe first. And the answer, the Google Bard that searched it was the James Webb Telescope, which was totally a wrong answer. It was the European agency which found the exoplanets in the universe first. So when this error occurred during the search, during the presentation, the parent company of Google, Alphabet, it lost $100 billion in an hour. So you can very well imagine we are talking about a very stiff competition here. Very tough competition between the companies. And when these organizations are trying to develop, they're working on their core competency. They're working on their expertise. Just take the core competency of Apple. It has a core competency in what? iOS. They have got their own security system. And of course, it's a great example of organizational development that they have looked into the area where other organizations have not looked at. So we understand organizational development is trying to build the overall system of the organization, and it is focused on, of course, the strategy. It is focused on the structure, and of course it is also focused on the process. So we are looking at that these organizations are trying to build, improve, and reinforce their strategy, structure, and process to compete better in the market, to take an edge or competitive advantage over their competitors. But when they're doing this, they are facing the problems like globalization. They are facing the problems like managerial innovation. And of course, they are also facing the problem, besides managerial innovation, technological changes. As I've given you just the example of ChatGPT, all these things are taking place, and organizations have to respond to these things. So we look at organization, of course they're looking into the external business environment and where globalization is taking place. Nowadays, organizations have their operations stretched out in hundreds of countries thanks to the power of supply chain. As mentioned by Thomas Friedman, who believes that there have been many flatteners which have flattened the world. So we understand globalization where cross-border flow of ideas, trades, business, all these things is taking place. Organizations are struggling because when you go and operate in a different country, they have got different laws, they have got different regulations, they've got different cultures, they've got different requirements. So you gotta be on your toes to ensure that when globalization is taking place, you want to understand organizations struggle. For example, when COVID-19 struck, it struck in one country, but due to the domino effect, due to the interconnectedness and the interdependency created by globalization, all the countries struggled and they were sort of like sucked in, and they were, they had the pandemic as well. So pandemic is spread all over the world because of globalization, and that's one such channel. Comes managerial innovation, where managers, when they are dealing with the managerial innovation, organizational development is one such area where managers have come up with a new discipline which they are utilizing to improve the organization. So organizational development started in 1940s, and the father of organization was Kurt Lewin. Okay, father of the organization was Kurt Lewin, and we see it's a new discipline where the managers are trying to sort of like deal with this discipline and implement it successfully, because it's the ultimate test of the leadership of the managers. So when we discuss the managerial innovation, what we are looking at, back in the days managers were very monoculture, but nowadays managers are multicultural. So back in the days managers were controller, nowadays managers are contributors. So innovation has taken place. Back in the days, managers were like a leader or maybe separate entity, but nowadays they are the team player. So we see the innovation that taken place in management. Managers now, modern managers have to be equipped with the new techniques and tools to deal with this problem. Comes technological changes. I've given you the example of chat gpt, where the world is changing due to the artificial intelligence, and that's thanks to technology. So companies have to adapt to the new technology as well in order to better compete in the market. So in this course we'll be looking at what are the business models, what are the, of course, we'll be looking at intervention techniques, and what are the strategies that we can utilize. All these things will be the part of this course, and we'll look into all these things, and we'll look into the steps of the organizational development. I'll give you the steps, and then in the next lecture I'll be covering the very first step. I'll be discussing about the themes of organizational development, and I will also discuss about the stems of organizational development, how in different eras organizational development evolved, and that was Kurt Lewin who did different experiments. That's something I'll be discussing in the next lecture. But before I leave, I was just discussing that yes, there are certain steps of the organizational development, 7. The very first step is entering and contracting. The second step is diagnosis. The third step is data collection. The fourth step is feedback. The fifth step is designing intervention. Okay? Designing intervention. The sixth one is managing and leading change. And the last step is evaluation and institutionalizing change. So these are the 7 steps that we'll be looking at in the coming lectures. So I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you so much. Please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.